Hi Hermits, welcome back or to my channel. My name is Dara and today we are going to be talking about 5-star predictions. Specifically, the 5-star predictions that are sitting on my physical TBR. I have an endless number of books on my Kindle, in my Audible account, and honestly a lot of them look like 5 stars too. But in the spirit of keeping this video short, I will just talk about the physical books. If you would like me to do a separate video talking about 5-star predictions that I have sitting on my Kindle, I would be more than happy to do so. Just leave me a comment and let me know and I'll do that. So let's dive right in. I've got this pile sitting in front of me, and what I will say is that all of my 5-star predictions for the most part are pretty underhyped. In fact, there are only 2 of these books that I've heard anybody talk about at all. One I would describe as being very hyped, and one I would say is moderately hyped, but the rest I've never heard anybody else talk about them, which I always think is pretty exciting when I watch booktube videos and people talk about books that I've never heard of or I've never heard anybody else speak about. It always piques my interest because I do think that we can live very much in this booktube bubble and we all just read the books that we all read, and it stops things from being different. And I love a bit of difference, I love a bit of variety because I'm such an omnivore of a reader. So that's what I want to bring to the table too. Anyway, getting rambly there. Let's dive right in. So the first book that is a 5-star prediction for me is City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. I've actually owned this on audio for a really long time, and then at some point last year I saw the physical copy for, I think it was either £1 or 2 for £1 in the charity shop, and it's signed, so I snapped it up. So now I have a physical version and an audio version. But one of the reasons that this appealed to me in the first place is because the cover, I think it's stunning. Another is because it was actually released on my birthday, and for some reason that always makes me want to read a book. And the third is I've read Elizabeth Gilbert's books in the past and thoroughly enjoyed them. We've all read Eat, Pray, Love. I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about her fiction. So a few years ago I read one of her books called The Signature of All Things. It's a historical fiction. And when I say the writing was impeccable, I'm being like, it was stunning. It was stunning. And I just really admired the characterization, the world building, the story, just the language that she used, and I'm gushing. It's been so many years since I read that, and yet still it is so vivid in my memory, and that very rarely happens. And so I knew that if she put any more fiction out there, I would want to snap it up. And this one just looks like a fun, like dramatic historical romp, and I'm very much about that life, so definitely expecting big things from this one. Okay, the second book, so I actually had 2 books by this author that were contenders for this list, and I ended up picking this one. Number one, because I wanted to keep it at 10, because they both felt like 5 stars, to be quite honest. But this one sounded a little bit more unusual, as in the synopsis sounded a bit more unusual. So Anne-Marie McLemore, I think that's how you pronounce their surname, typically writes fairy tale retellings, and the other contender for the list was Wild Beauty, and I believe that is a retelling of Sleeping Beauty, which I love. Like, I love that fairy tale. But we see a lot of retellings of Sleeping Beauty, whereas this one feels very different. So I believe that there is a thread of the Ugly Duckling in this story, and also Snow White and Rose Red. Snow White and Rose Red was one of my very favourite fairy tales as a kid, so I'm definitely excited to read this. I think it's going to be dramatic, I think it's going to be emotional, I think it's going to be beautiful, and I am definitely very excited to read this. And then now we have the hyped one. So the hyped book on this list is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now, the reason that this made the list is because I had such a stunning TJR year last year. Last year I read The Evidence of the Affair, which was 5 stars. I read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which was 5 stars. And then I read Daisy Jones and the Six, which was 12 stars. And so I have very high expectations for this one. Like, she's going to need to keep building that momentum and going further up in my estimations, because I will not accept anything less. Plus, very pretty cover. And then this next book is the one that I mentioned was like half hyped. So I have seen people talk about this, but not quite as much as Malibu Rising. And that is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. Now, this is sort of Dracula's brides retelling. So it's not a traditional retelling of the story of Dracula. This is about his brides. So the women in his harem that he collected doing his dastardly things. I've heard this be described as like very emotional, very dark, very triggering. But I love anything vampire-y, I love anything hard-hitting. And just from what I've heard about the language and the writing style, I think it's going to be right up my street. So I'm definitely looking forward to this. I feel like I'm going to need to read it on a really like dark, cold, blustery night, because it's giving me those kind of vibes. I don't want to have to save it till Halloween, but I might. It's like, it feels like a book for that time of year. Anyway. Next, we have The House of Spirits by Isabel Allende. Now, Isabel Allende is one of my favourite authors of all time. She wrote Of Love and Shadows, which is one of my #1 books of all time. I loved it. And everything else that I've read by her, I've thoroughly enjoyed too. This one is most often described as her like #1 work, like her most iconic book. And so because I've loved the ones that aren't described as that, I feel like this one must be even better. So I'm definitely excited to dive in. I have to be in a very particular mood to read her books though, because they are very like slow and lyrical and beautiful. They're always beautiful and a tiny bit magical, but they're not the kind of books where you're going to be like immediately gripped. It's not fast paced, but I don't mind that, because sometimes I do want to luxuriate in the books that I'm reading, and she gives me that. Next, we have A Friend is a Gift You Give Yourself by William Boyle. This just sounds like a really fun time. So this is about a mob widow who, I'm just going to read you the synopsis because I don't think I'm going to get it perfect. So yeah, there's a mob widow who hits her 80-year-old neighbour Enzio on the head with an ashtray for making an unwanted move on her. And after that, she retreats to the Bronx home of her estranged daughter Adrienne and her granddaughter Lucia, only to be turned away at the door. Their neighbour, Wolfie, a one-time Golden Age porn star and retired Florida Suncoast grifter, takes Rena in and befriends her. When Lucia discovers that Adrienne is planning to hit the road with her ex-boyfriend, she figures Rena is her only way out of a life on the run with a mother she can't stand. The stage is set for an explosion that will propel Rena, Wolfie and Lucia down a strange path, each woman running from their demons no matter the cost. I just think it's going to be fun, and sometimes that's what I want in a book. Sometimes, yes, I want to get deep, I want to have my sad girl moments, but sometimes I just want some fun. And I have a real soft spot in my heart for any kind of like friendship story between a young person and an old person. There's something about making friends with old people that I love in a book. I love it. So definitely looking forward to diving into this one. My next 5-star prediction is All the Bad Apples by Moira Fowley Doyle. And first of all, this cover, like this is what made me pick this book up. It's just beautiful. Love it. Love how it looks on my, even like the back cover is beautiful. So this is, I already know, going to be delicious. It's got that, those like vengeful rebel girl vibes, which is just a bit of me. I just want to read you these lines off the back of the book because honestly, tell me this doesn't sound pristine. Our family tree is full of bad apples. You know the kind. The ones who don't follow the rules. The ones who dress differently, think differently, love differently. The curse of the bad apples has claimed my sister, and now it's coming for me. Yes, it is, and I'm going to be there. Next, we have Till the Well Runs Dry by Lauren Francis Sharma. This is a strangely heavy book. Why is this so heavy? But this is one of those stunning family sagas that spans many, many decades, and I believe this is set in Trinidad. So it moves from Trinidad to the United States. So I don't know a whole lot about the plot, but I believe there is a love story between a young seamstress and a respected police officer, and they like band together and make their fortune and like start living this life. And obviously, because it is set like between the 40s and the 60s, they have to contend with a lot of really challenging things, like to do with race, to do with class, to do with gender. And I just think it's going to be impeccable. I think it's going to get me in the heart. I think it's going to make me feel feelings, but sometimes I need that. Sometimes I really need to just feel the feelings. And I just have this feeling that this book is going to give it to me in such a way that it will earn itself a 5-star. Next, we have The Man Who Fell in Love with the Moon by Tom Spanbauer. And I bought this at some time last year, and I actually didn't realise how old it was. I thought this was a new release when I saw it because I'd never heard about it. But it turns out it was actually released in the year I was born. So it was released in 1991. And again, like, I like books that were released on my birthday, and I like books that were released in my birth year. What can I say? But this sounds like just such a vibey read. So it is about this young man who works at, let me just tell you where he works, Idaho's outrageously pink whorehouse. And he's like living his life in this very small town, and he is captivated by this young man and ends up going off on an adventure with him. And it just gives me those feelings of riding through the desert late at night in an open-topped car, just feeling like the whole world is yours for the taking. That's what I feel when I think about this book. So I just think it is going to be a standout 5-star read. And then last but not least, this is actually a recent purchase. So a couple of weeks ago, I went for a morning wandering around the charity shops and I picked up this one, and it was like 3 for £1. And this is there's a lot of book for my money right here. So this is I Am Charlotte Simmons by Tom Wolfe. And first of all, I'm obsessed with this cover. I think it really gives off this kind of retro-y vibe. I'm thinking like 80s, 90s. It's that sort of feeling. And this is set in an American university, and this young girl, this very normal girl, goes to college there and suddenly finds herself in this world of the elites. So she is surrounded by new friends and connections who are kind of like playboys. Have never really had to worry about real world things. Have never had to be particularly grounded in what is reasonable. And at the same time, she has never had her mind open in the way that they have. She's had this very closed off life of working hard and being responsible. And it's about them coming together and her having her world opened, and just seeing how that will impact her as she grows into womanhood. And I'm not describing it very well at all, but I'm definitely excited to pick this up. I'm also interested to see how I feel about a sort of coming of age story about a woman that is written by a man, because that is not something that I've experienced a lot of. So it's kind of a wild card on this list, but I'm judging a book by its cover. I'm hoping for the best. I'm gonna say this is a 5-star read. I will, of course, do a wrap-up video at some point where I talk about having read these books, and I see if I was accurate in assuming that things were going to be favourites. Typically, I'm not. I might so the thing is, I don't actually make predictions a lot about how much I am going to love a book. So it's always a stunning surprise. When I think about the last few 5-star reads that I read, I thought I would enjoy them, because why would I ever pick up a book that I don't think I'm going to enjoy? I just wouldn't. But I haven't had this idea in my head of this has to be 5 stars. So we'll see how that goes. But like I said, if you would like me to record a part 2 where I'm talking about my maybe audio and ebook 5-star predictions, then definitely leave me a comment below. And if you don't want to miss my next upload, make sure you do all the usual things, the subscribe, the like, the notification bell, all that jazz. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.